the postman is at it again. I mean, you could see the dents on the box on this parcel over here. Yeah, and there's a worse one right here. Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven with another Saber figure unboxing as well as a review. Not exactly Saber, more like Altria Pendragon, but whenever we see her face we call her Saber. Last week I reviewed the E-Stream version, which is Lancer class. That one was one of the best value purchases in year 2023 itself. Regardless of whether you are a fan of FGO or not, that one was a great purchase if you have the space to display it at ease. This week, we are looking at the one made by Aniplex, which also came out in May, the same month as the E-Stream one. This one is the Caster class version, and I'm having expectations just as high. Aniplex is making great figures lately. The past 2-3 years, yeah, their figures are quite good compared to 6 or 7 years ago. At least the box on this one is a lot more manageable in size, but my initial impressions are not that good, more like, yeah, the postman is at it again. I mean, you could see the dents on the box on this parcel over here. Yeah, and there's a worse one right here. So I have no idea what the figure box will turn out like. Hopefully it is not too badly damaged because that would really suck. However, this is something completely inevitable in my country. More like regardless of which courier you use, there is a chance this might happen. Anyways, let's open up this box and we'll see what the contents are like for this figure. Hi and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a figure unboxing as well as a review, my second consecutive Altria Pendragon review. Though this time around we are looking at Aniplex 1/7 scale Caster class version of Altria Pendragon from Fate's Grand Order. In the starting part of this video, I have already showed you guys the unboxing process. This is a very simple figure to put together. This figure by Aniplex, she was around somewhere between 20 to 22,000 yen MSRP, recommended retail price, though right before release, like a month before release, right? The price have started to slowly go up. And by now, I think she is going for anywhere between 25 to 28,000 yen, which is like a 20 to 40% of increase in MSRP, which I think 28,000 yen is a bit too much for a simple scale figure like this one, though a really good one. So with this figure, my advice, if you are interested in her, is to wait a little bit longer. It is no wonder that her price went up, because this is the only Caster Altria figure out there at the moment, and there will be a second one coming out in the coming months, which is also by Aniplex but a different Ascension version. So I do see the price of this figure either maintaining at the recommended retail price or higher than that. If you come across one at MSRP price of 22,000 yen, grab it. Yeah, I don't see this one bargain binning. Not in the short term at least. If you were to tell me, should I wait for until after a year before buying one? I would say probably you can. You might have a little bit of difficulty of finding one. I don't see this one like becoming so rare to the extent of hitting double price, right? I don't see that happening. In general, Fate's Grand Order stuff, they don't really go that high in pricing in the aftermarket. So back to this figure of Caster Altria Pendragon. This figure shows me the journey of Aniplex starting out like 8 years ago, 10 years ago, making figures. Mars Qlight was one of their earliest FGO scale figures back then. And Mars Qlight was okay, but everything else before that, especially that saber, the one with a coat over her, that OG saber, there were a lot of QC issues with the paintwork, right? Today they are making excellent figures. Even the figure of Mato Sakura I reviewed so long ago, that was a great figure. And now Aniplex is one of the most consistent figure brands out there, which is quite surprising to me, given that, with most figure brands that are a branch of the official production studio which holds the rights and the license to a major franchise, like think of Kadokawa for example. These copyright holders, right, they don't really have to go out and do their very best with their figures, and they will still sell anyway. That's the thing. However, Aniplex seems to hold on their quality for quite a bit. They are quite consistent in this regard, and I am a very happy owner of this figure of Caster Altria Pendragon. Before we move on to the figure itself, a quick mention about the box. Well, the box is pretty small and compact for a 1x7 scale figure, so the shipping cost will not cost too much. As for the box itself, pretty ordinary, like as ordinary as other low-cost scale figures in the market, bid by good smile under 20,000 yen. Nothing spectacular in terms of how much protection they offer to the figure. So as long your postman do not treat your figure box as a chair and sit on it, I think the figure will survive shipping process. Moving on to the actual figure itself, I have heard a number of early complaints from people in my figurecollection.net saying that her face isn't accurate, like it doesn't look much like the official artwork, which is where this figure is based on. But once you have the figure in your hands and you're looking at her in person, like face to face to look at her, I would say the face is plenty accurate compared to the official artwork. And if you look at user photos online, right, and say, this doesn't really look like Caster Altria at all, I would say maybe the problem is the camera, not really the figure itself, because smartphone cameras have wide angle lenses for the main camera, the highest quality camera. If there are a few cameras behind a phone, the highest quality one, the main camera, is wide angle, around 24 to 26 millimeters equivalent also. And when you use wide angle camera to capture a figure, take photos of a figure at very close distance, there will be distortion. So in a way, the face might look a bit different from what you see with your own human eyes. Our human eyes is around 40 millimeters or so. And you're taking a 24mm camera to take a picture of the figure. Of course, it is not going to look very accurate. This is the one topic I would love to discuss in a future video, where what you see with your human eyes on a figure and what you show to other people via your smartphone camera photos, they can be a bit different. Different enough to be misleading, especially with proportions of a figure, like whether the face is too round or too elongated, things like that related to the sculpting, they can look different. However, user photos are quite useful to determine the quality of a figure with regards to the paint work. There is an option to display her without that cape and also that beret on her head. Yeah, you can remove the beret and place that ahoge on her head. And also, you can remove the cape and place a separate ribbon which was included in the box, though I don't really see a point. To me, Caster Altria, at least in this version over here, needs to have that beret and that cape with her. Yeah, it is nice to have that option though. From the body, the torso, the outfit, all the way to her leg. Yeah, and her outfit in general, I see no problems at all. This is a very accurate replica of the official artwork, seriously. It is pretty good. And I'm impressed by how well Aniplex made this figure. Aniplex had their own occasional hiccups, like Average Kigal, for example, you know, that spear, that lance she is holding. Yeah, it will curve and bend under weight and under a hot environment because the PVC material is a bit soft. But other than the occasional hiccup, this figure of Caster Altria over here is like 10 out of 10 in sculpting department. Not the most detailed figure out there, but when you compare it to the official artwork, it is pretty precise, quite accurate, and that is why I'm quite happy with this figure. And then the next thing regarding the paint job, this is where I'm happy to report there are no obvious flaws at all of the painting of this figure. There were a couple of months of delay. I think this figure was supposed to be out in February initially, and she was only released in late May or early June or so. So there was a 3 or 4 months delay, which I think was worth it because the paint quality of this figure is impeccable. I could not find a single paint transfer, paint staining, or any scratches of any kind. Things that are related to quality control in general, there are none of it on this figure. You look underneath the cape and you look at all of the gold color trims, right? Those very thin trims and the decal placement. Not a single sign of paint bleeding at all. Very precise paint work and decal placement. So with the painting department of this figure, this is easily a 9.5 out of 10. Maybe even a 10 out of 10. Yeah, I would say I should be more generous and give her a 10 out of 10 in the painting department because seriously I could not find a single flaw. In comparison, Extreme Lancer Altria that I reviewed 2 weeks ago, there were a couple of flaws in the painting, very minimal one. And in comparison, Aniplex version of Caster Altria does not have a single flaw of the paintwork. So in a way, this is a more well-painted figure than the one by Extreme, as hard as it may seem to believe. Yeah. So given that I have such high praise on this figure with both the sculpting and the paint work, are there even any flaws at all? Well, I'm not sure if this can be considered a flaw, but there is actually 3 of them at least with this figure. That 3 negatives I can think of. The first one being, this is more of a design decision, cost-cutting decision on behalf of Aniplex. The beret over here, there is no magnet at all that keeps the head in place. The beret is very rubbery, very flexible, and you just use force and push it down her head. There is nothing wrong with this mechanism. The beret stays in place this way, but I would rather have a magnetic connection, magnetic attraction between the beret and the head of the figure. The first figure that comes to mind that uses magnet for the head, for the beret, is Helena Blavatsky from Fate Grand Order, made by Amakuni. That was actually the first scale figure I reviewed on this channel a couple of years ago. So that figure, I like it so much because, yeah, the head stays in place and does not fall off because of magnets. There is none of them on this figure. Obviously, a decision made by Aniplex to cut cost, but this solution over here, a flexible, rubbery head, is not a bad alternative either. The second problem has to do with this staff over here she is holding. Like, the paint work on this is impeccable. It looks fabulous. But then at the base over here, there is a small hole, a slight indentation where the staff is supposed to go into so that it stays in place like at this specific angle over here. However, it comes off very easily. You just shake the figure a bit. Yeah, see, and it pops off from the hole over there. I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I don't mind the staff being held at a more diagonal angle like this. There is nothing wrong with it. And this might be a good thing even because we don't want a thin and long plastic pack going into a hole in the base because the pack might break off over time. So this is not necessarily a bad thing. I would say there are pros and cons to this approach over here. The third negative, I think you guys already know by now how much I hate plastic rods. It is not here, I chose not to include it. So there is a plastic rod that is supposed to hold up the cape and push it up further like this. Which, yeah, I wouldn't place it when I display this figure. It just feels so out of place. It is not nice at all. And the fourth flaw, the fourth negative of this figure is the fact that this figure is very wobbly. This is the polar opposite of Extreme's Caster Altria Pendragon, rock solid with that one. This one is very shaky because one single leg is being plugged into the base, supported by a pair of metal rods. Yeah. So this figure is incredibly wobbly. Will the figure break in the future? I don't think so, unless you shake it every day, of course. Because in terms of the weight, balance and distribution, I think the figure is quite well balanced. Just that due to the nature of the design of this character, it is based on official artwork, we ended up with a figure that is like this and shaky in the process. Yeah, so this is one of the least stable figures out there, but I wouldn't worry too much, to be honest. Finally, the round disc base. Yeah, this is probably cost cutting again, one of the most boring looking bases I've seen in many FGO figures. Yeah, 22,000 yen is pretty low for a 1/7 scale by year 2023 standards, I suppose, but then I would love to have a better base than what we're getting over here. Yeah. Despite the 4 negatives and the rather boring, ugly base we get over here, I can wholeheartedly recommend this figure to anyone who collects FGO stuff. I mean, this is a saber face figure. What is there not to like, right? Given that this is a high quality figure we're getting over here from Aniplex, the only one single factor that might stop you from buying this figure is, well, other than the fact you don't like this version of Caster, I think that 28,000 yen or the higher aftermarket prices doesn't really make much sense for a simple figure like this one. If you can score one for even official retail price, by all means go for it. I think it is possible to get it at official retail price in Chinese e-commerce website Taobao, not in Japan of course. Other than that, yeah, this is a great purchase. So that concludes my review of this Caster Altria Pendragon for today. What do you think about this figure? Do you already own one or you're planning to get one? Let me know down in the comments below. As usual, if you enjoyed this review, please do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel for more figure reviews in the future. Until then, thank you very much for staying with me all the way to the end, and I shall see you guys again soon. Goodbye.